Let's break the mold, start believing, and stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Welcome to Wild on 7, presented by Pilot Games. We're here until it's here.
All right, welcome back. This is Wild on 7th, your favorite Wild podcast, as always, presented by Pilot Games. Hey, if you didn't know, the playoffs started, and, well, the Wild had a pretty good game in Game 1 against Dallas, the longest game in franchise histories, and the good guys came out on top. Again, it was Ryan Hartman with the OT winner, double OT. Kinger, how'd you feel about that when it went in, and how were you able to stay up for the whole thing? I mean, it's a Monday night.
What are you talking about? Am I able to stay up? You know what's funny is I did the Bucci overtime challenge before the first OT, and I picked Hartman, but I can't for the life of me find it on my phone. I don't know if I tweeted it right into his DMs or what, but no. So, can I give you just 2 minutes fan experience, and then I want to hear what it was like for you professionals working the longest game in franchise history. My son came home. They have a shot of Gus in the locker room before the game, and I didn't know who it was because he's clean shaven. I was like, who is this guy? And then I was petrified that he had shaved. I think we're in trouble, right? And we stand for the anthem in my house. We're in the basement. They play the anthem. I wonder how many hockey fans do that. You stand up, you take your hat off while you're watching it on TV. And then it was a wild ride, lots of ups and downs. We were hanging on in those overtimes. It was like, I turned to my son, I'm like, it's only a matter of time. And then oopsie daisies, Hart man does it again. What would Hartsey do? He'd win Game 1 in Dallas. That's what he'd do. It was awesome.
WWHD. Now let's bring in Wild editorialist Scott Burnside. He was there for the whole thing. Where does this rank in terms of just playoff games you've watched, Scott? And obviously there's a lot of excitement in the building. How was it for you in your seat?
Yeah, no, I think it's the first time I caught an Uber home after filing at 3 a.m. So that's long. Thanks, NHL, for that great start time. But honestly, I said this in my file today, but that's one of the most compelling games I've ever covered. There was so much going on, and there were so many storylines. I know we're going to talk about the Matt Dumba hit on Joe Pavelski, and Brock Faber saves the game, and the Dallas power play looks like it's going to steamroll the entire maybe series. I was thinking about our keys to victory that we wrote on the sandpaper, and I think I said going to have to keep the Stars to 4 or fewer power play goals. I thought they would score 4 power play goals last night. So, but it had it all. And I think Dean Evison said this after the game. It truly had everything that we think of when we look forward to playoff hockey, and, the fans and reporters and broadcasters and people engaged in the game. It was a moment to remember. It really was. And for a Wild team whose history says we don't win Game 1s very often, I don't know if there's any way to overstate how important that win is.
Well, you're right. And I think it was a statement win for the Wild, and they had to do it their way too. And the mantra going in is grit first. That was really on display, I think, throughout that game too. And the Wild didn't go away. I think I talked to Evison yesterday morning before the game and said, hey, when or where is this series won and lost? And he said, man, there's so many areas it's hard to really describe. But then he went into a little bit more detail, and then he kind of came up with, you know what, we're going to have to keep the puck out of our net. I think he knew that at times Dallas was going to come out and they were going to grab momentum, and they're good offensively. They got 5 guys with over 70 points. I mean, they're pretty deep up front and stuff too. So, but the Wild defended well, and there was a commitment and a buy-in there. And man, I don't know, same Kinger, like watching that game, it felt like, but at the same time, it felt like the Wild were hemmed in OT. Like, man, how's this going to go? But I think Dallas started to loosen up, and they're starting to feel the pressure to have to score, and the Wild got their couple chances. Johansson not scoring on that breakaway. I said, oh, maybe that was their chance. Maybe that was the look. Now Dallas might actually feel like they've got something, go back the other way and score. But it came down to the Wild just didn't fold. Dallas was all over them, both OTs, but they defended well. They protected the house. And Scott, you touched on Brock Faber. Oh my goodness, how about that block? And we'll get into that a little bit more. But there's also the games within the game inside of playoff hockey, and I think those storylines already started to write themselves a little bit. It's Pete DeBoer coming in post game saying to the media, we have the best referees in the world. He's not going to go out and now you see coaches, they start to control the story and what's going on and help the narrative of the playoffs and refereeing. And he says, refs are great. That's the call. That's the way it is. That's not the reason we lost that game. And then you have Dean Evison coming in saying, yeah, we played great. We won the way we had to. Goaltenders were terrific. But how about, and King, let's bring you in here now, Matt Dumba. How about that statement hit? Like, I think he understood the situation. Wild get down, they lose momentum after Dallas scores a couple of quick power play goals. And how do they get it back? They get on the power, and then Dumba with a big hit on a very important guy to this hockey club. And then that totally changed the tune.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to get to start this section on Matt Dumba. So I used to watch clips of Dumba in Red Deer, and he was Scott Stevens Jr. He would kill guys when he was younger. He did it in Game 6 in Vegas. I don't know who he hit, but literally, I don't care what the public sentiment was on Matt Dumba. He wasn't going anywhere because of what he did in Game 6 against Vegas. It was a moment where Billy fell in love with him, and he created another moment last night. And the thing I love about Dumba, I'd never want a guy to get hurt, good, obviously a very nice player, Pavelski. But watching Dumba on the bench with the tongue out on the way to the penalty box. And then there's this great thing in hockey where you do the extra woo, where you go, woo, woo, and it's just a little
Ric
bit
Flair.
too much. Oh my God, looking at Domi across he is comfortable being public enemy number one. He said it last night. And those are the moments that not only change games, they change series, especially that guy not on the power play.
And I was talking to somebody and they said, well, that was like maybe the turning point of the series or the marquee moment of it. And that may be the case in the end. I think it's a little early to call that like the moment of the series. But at the same time, I think that's the moment that Dallas realized that it didn't matter that they came in winning 6 in a row and they'd only given up 6 goals over those 6 games, that this was all of a sudden a different beast, and the Wild weren't going to go away quietly or easily. And doesn't matter if they're without their, PP1 guy, John Klingberg. Doesn't matter if Eriksson Ek is, in the press box hurt, coming back, whatever it might be. Didn't matter that, hey, we're here. And it was a statement hit, and the Wild they got big plays from leadership throughout this game. And it was Matt Dumba with the hit, Marcus Foligno at different times with physicality, and then him targeting Robertson at specific times. And then Jared Spurgeon with the defense. He breaks, I don't know if he broke his nose. Maybe he thought I looked good after taking that stick to the face and he wanted a little bit of that. He's like, Karts does look playoff ready, but now he's got tape all over the nose. How about that coming out of the locker room afterwards too? He's got the game puck, a little speech. It looks like a breathe right upside down. Like it just kind of looks wrong and gross. But the messages were sent from leadership and statements made. And Matt Dumba, you're absolutely right, man. Where I have to give him credit is maturity in his game and recognizing these moments. He's not afraid to make these hits. I think he used to be, and maybe afraid is not the right word, but he wouldn't like the response that would come after those hits. And, maybe he'd be a little bit more quiet the duration of the game and the rest of that one. When the 7-game series, and you're in that, or what we think is going to be a 7-game series, it looks like that way right now, but in a playoff series, you make that hit game 1, you know that you're going to be a target for the rest of that, the rest of that series. And he seems totally comfortable with it.
But isn't it Carts he's not the target. 97's the target. I mean, you saw it yesterday with Suter chasing him around, he put more lumber into Kirill than Home Depot. It was, I mean, I think that's the chess match, right? It's like, oh, you take one of our studs, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to kill your brother, your best friend in the world. I mean, it's dark stuff in the playoffs. And Kirill was getting pounded after that Dumba hit.
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think, and I thought Pete DeBoer obviously took the high road in terms of the officiating, and specifically on the call on Dumba on Pavelski, and of course, as you know, the history is that Pete DeBoer and Joe Pavelski were central figures in why the rule got changed, right back in the playoffs. Vegas versus San Jose, one of the great comebacks of all time for San Jose, really cost Vegas that's playoff series, but because of an erroneous call. It was a bad call, allowed San Jose to score like 8 power play goals on a major that should not have been called. And so I credit Pete for saying that, because when the officials look at it, and that's, to me, that's the good thing about it. They had the opportunity to review the initial call, which is a major, and the game changes, right? Like if that's the call that stands, then the power plays out and it might be 6-1, right? It could have been it. And I think they made the right call. Man, I hate to see Joe Pavelski go down like that. And it's a hard hockey hit. And I know a lot of people got to take those out of the game. I don't know where you go to take them out. And no one wants to see that, but I'm glad the officials made that call. I will say, I thought it was a very curiously called game. And you referenced the abuse of Kirill Kaprizov. And if you talk to the Wild, man, the Wild got away with about 3 or 4 calls. When Brock Faber, we talked about high sticking Tyler Seguin.
Yep.
Clearly in the head, no call. Matt Boldy, clearly a trip. In overtime, not called. It was it was just kind of a weird way to call it. And I wish, whether it's somebody cross-checking Kirill Kaprizov in the back and knocking him down, which happened a number of times. There were a couple of really, I thought, borderline dirty plays on Kaprizov. But if it's going the other way too, if somebody's doing that to Robertson or whatever in front of the Minnesota, I wish they would call that more consistently, because Ryan, you can speak to this. To me, that's the dirtiest play, and it happens all the time. Somebody cross checks you in the lower back, or right in the middle of your back, and sometimes you don't see it, but it must hurt, and it's dangerous. And I wish they would call that more often. I mean, there was a lot of fluidity to how that game was called in my mind.
Well, I think you're right, and looking at the refereeing, I do think that they missed some calls on both sides, but what I do think is that the balance of calls was there. I think Dallas deserved more power plays than the Wild did, and if they called everything, it would have been a parade to the penalty box, and maybe they should have done that. But I think the balance was pretty spot on. They missed a few for the Wild against the Wild. They missed a few, Dallas and Ryan Suter with the cross checks missed some that could have clearly been penalties, but it was there. Going back to the Matt Dumba hit and wanting to get that out of hockey, I'm actually the opposite. I take the other side of that coin. It's like, I don't know that we need to get that out of hockey. It's still a physical game. Fighting is still legal. It's still within the rules to be able to make a physical play and change momentum. And Matt Dumba did that. He understands it. And yeah, you don't want to ever see somebody hurt, but you, at the same time, as a player, you recognize that this is legal. This is part of the game. And I can't stand there and watch my pass. I can't look at I have to protect myself in some of the situations. And that's what the physical play can do. It can make you think twice. And I love that about hockey, that the game can change and there are different things. And I wholeheartedly believe that the physical side of the game is coming back to be a competitive advantage. And maybe it'll be this playoff run from a grit first Wild team that starts to change that narrative. It's a copycat league. You went, Tampa is so good. They're able to win it with skill. They're fast paced. They can score 6. Colorado copies it. but everybody can't get Nathan McKinnon, Nikita Kucherov, but you can get big, heavy, physical guys that commit to a style of play and want, a team first mentality. That's what the Wild have. So I personally love that, and I love the leadership from Matt Dumba. Now, at the same time, I get it. I'm not trying to be one of those dudes that don't want somebody hurt. I like and respect Joe Pavelski, everything he's done in hockey, 1,000 points, all those games, American. You touched on the Vegas series where that was a terrible visual too. He was on the ice bleeding from his head. It was ugly. And Pete DeBoer was on the bench for San Jose. And I respect Pete DeBoer greatly too, because and you could see it in his response last night that he feels for the health and safety of Joe Pavelski. He loves that guy. He's a warrior, plays for him. He was happy that he was able to walk out of that building. And I've played for Pete. And if you go back to the fight in Madison Square Garden where it was Devils Rangers, which is going to be a great game here tonight. I left that one bloody, and Pete came up to me and he was hurt, and he said, "Ryan, I'm so sorry that I put you in that situation, that you ended up, bleeding, looking like this." He goes, "I'm sorry, man. But at the same time, from that point on, you're always Pete's guy, and he'll take care of you." So that's my thought on that. But at the same time, I love the physical stuff, man. I think it's a part of the game, and it matters.
Well, it's hockey heaven, the playoffs. I mean, there were so many times last night I was just like, this is the best. It's the best. It's a different species. It's so fast. Marcus Foligno was hunting men last night. I mean, it was like, he's like, you know what? I can't quite figure out the hands. I'm just going to start killing people. It was so fun to watch. And even on the Suter stuff, right? So the funny thing about playoff hockey is if he was on our team, and our guy just got knocked out, you'd be thrilled that he's going after them, protecting his buddy. I mean, that's playoff hockey. It is a Royal Rumble, outsider style, and I can't get enough of it.
Sitting on your couch or lounge chair, bar stool, whatever it was, watching that game, Kinger, what did you start to think of the way that Ryan Suter was playing? We touched on it in the season or the series preview that Suter's going to have an impact in this game or in this series. And we were wondering if it was going to be in the Sean Avery, everybody hates me kind of way. And I think he played that role, the role of the villain, pretty darn well last night.
Ryan he's smart and he's strong. He knows what he can get away with. He does it at exactly the right moment. He was a big part of that game last night, and I think he's close to Pavelski. I think they're boys, and I think he really took that personal when that he's been in our room. He knows Dumba. He's tight with Joe. Joe's lying on the ice. I mean, he is out, and I mean, it was emotional. I think he was trying to show that he had his back. It was I mean, I understood it. It was hard to watch because Kirill was really kind of getting clipped when he wasn't expecting it. Almost drive-bys. And he clearly got him. I mean, when you see him hunched over going to the bench and their backup goalies just looking at him like, what's going on here? What did he got shanked in the prison cell? I mean, it was hard to watch.
Yeah, it was effective too. So how about Kaprizov? I mean, he had a great first 20 minutes. And I think through 40 minutes, he had 9 attempted shots, best player on the ice. But then he takes that shot from Suter. And throughout the rest of the game, he had 2 total shot attempts. And not one of them hit the net. I think they either were both blocked or both missed the net. So whatever hit him affected him. And again, Ryan Suter, I think he's one of those guys that he's not going to go into the weight room and throw 3 plates on each side, get under the squat rack and be able to do it with ease. But at the same time, he could probably throw a refrigerator on his back and walk up the stairs without any problem, right? Like he just has this.
I think you're right.
Has this amazing strength. It's like it doesn't show up in the gym, but it's there. And you
look at that cross check, Ryan. I mean, it's like it wasn't like he was two-handing him like he's chopping wood in the backyard, but whatever he did, he got him. He's also the guy that punched Kirill in the face, if I'm correct, right? He bloodied his nose. So Carill's a tough competitor too, though. He doesn't shy away, so I expect the Russian Ox to spend some time in the ice bath and be just fine, because this is going to be his life in the playoffs. Every game, every series, every team we're playing is going to do that to him, and I mean he's going to learn.
I thought, and Ryan, you're absolutely right. Maybe a diminished presence after the Suter hit. I still continue to be impressed by how well he distributes the puck, and he creates such space coming through the neutral zone. And even though it may not have registered in terms of, oh, there's a great chance for Kaprizov, I thought he was really instrumental in keeping the Wild in the game flow wise when the tables did turn. I was just looking, I was trying to remember the stats, but the Wild were outshot in overtime 27-12, I think is the final, 27-12 in overtime. But I thought Kaprizov, even though it was obviously not his usual, what we saw in the first half maybe of the game, but again, his ability to distribute the puck and keep the flow going, and I think to keep Dallas on their toes, because there were, even though the chances were more lopsided in the two overtimes, there were enough glorious chances, right? Marcus Johansson, Matt Dumba has a chance to, complete the incredible narrative, scoring, jumping into the play on the right side. But I thought Kaprizov was, acquitted himself well. And I think it's, I think that your point's an excellent one. What happens? Because now every night, this is exactly what's going to happen to you. And my sense is he will thrive on it and rise to the occasion. But I thought these are good lessons for young players. And there were a bunch of young players in that game last night. There were 3 guys playing their first NHL playoff game, and all 3 of them made significant contributions or had a real impact on the game. And I think that's, in the absence of Eriksson Ek right now and John Klingberg, man, if you don't have those young guys that you can trust to put on the ice when everything's on the line, then you're in trouble. And the faith of the organization was rewarded by Sam Steele and Faber and Philip Gustafsson. I thought, to me, that's a pretty impressive part of that game moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Let's get into the contributions from the young guys, but before we do that, let's get a word from our sponsors.
It's playoff time, and that means it's playoff beard time. And nobody has your beard sorted better than the folks at Duke Cannon. Whether you want beard balm, beard oil, beard wash, they have it all. Check out dukecannon.com. Use promo code BEARD10 for 10% off. Don't leave this stuff to people who don't know what they're doing. Trust the experts at Duke Cannon. Get that playoff beard rocking.
Well, everybody, it's back. The Aquarius Home Services and Connecticut Customer Appreciation Open House event is happening Friday, May 5th through Sunday, May 7th. Connecticut water treatment systems will be up to 30% off. Salt and water filters are 20% off. New heating and cooling systems up to 25% off. Food and fun for all. And be sure you bring in your water sample for a free water analysis. It's the Aquarius Connecticut Open House event, May 5th through the 7th in Little Canada at 694 and 35E. Details at aquariushomeservices.com.
All right, well, thanks for that. And Kinger, we've got a little from. Let's see that jacket you're wearing. Does that say Al Ray on the breast pocket there? He's got a nice little piece from Jimmy's Dressings and Dips. Is that your playoff jacket you're sporting there?
Yeah,
it's about the name on the back in this regard. It's not the crest in the front, right? Jimmy's Dressings and Dips.
How are your beards going, guys? I'm 2 days in. I fresh shower. I feel like $1,000,000. I feel like one of the pink ladies in Greece. I might be Rizzo. I think that game got me pregnant last night. It was. This Jimmy's jacket is the coolest. You got one in your. I got one for you too, Carts. They mailed us both one. We'll have to get you one, Scott.
So I thought I saw you with a ponytail last night too. Did you? Is that true? Did I hear that right?
No ponytail. I can't pull that off. No, I've had one like in the barber's chair once just to see if I had it, but no, you got to be a special breed and a lot skinnier than me to do a ponytail.
All right. Well, since we're talking about good salad, let's start off with Brock Faber and Scott. What do What'd you like about his game? Like, it was pretty impressive for a guy playing his third NHL game and first one against a playoff caliber team, to be able to do what he did.
Yeah, no, I thought he was solid, and his ice time. I think Dean Evason's use of him reflected, not wanting to overexpose him. But when you're playing a double overtime game, and John Merrill, there was a period of time where he didn't play as much. So, you've got the kid in the lineup, he plays. And I thought he was really good all night. I thought his positioning was excellent. And then, of course, he literally saves the game, a few minutes before the Ryan Hartman goal by diving and getting a stick on a Mason Marchment shot in basically a wide open net. And he's so great to talk. We talked about it afterwards in the locker room, and he says, yeah, that's my guy. I obviously should have been a lot closer to him. And you're not thinking about it. He's just diving. He gets a stick on it. But to have the wherewithal in that moment to make that kind of play. But I thought he was real solid all night. And I think it's, again, how does the confidence build, but exponentially after an event like that? I don't know how many times he said in the brief scrum, that was crazy. That was crazy. And how much fun to see the game through his eyes after some moments like that, and to have a play where he literally saves the game. Cool.
And how about you, John? We know you love the Gophers, Brock Faber. How is it sitting at home watching him acclimate to playoff hockey?
Well, Scott, one thing you're going to learn about us Minnesotans is, we take care of our own. There's this one of us. There's this one of us thing, and the amount of human beings in the state of Minnesota that were texting about Brock Faber as if he was their own son playing in an NHL game. I would get text, Faber is a grown man, but it's like, after he got past 10 seconds in overtime and all the Gopher jokes got done, then it was just all, it's as if he belongs to all of us, I think, because he's so young and going through the hardship recently that the whole state went through. I think a lot of people are rooting for him, and he looks pretty comfortable out there, I have to say. I feel good with Brock Faber on the ice. And how about number 7, by the way, Karts? What a great number. Young kid, single digit. Neil Broughton, toss me 7. Not terrible.
Yeah, no pressure. I don't even know if he's aware, and it's kind of what's amazing. So my observations yesterday too, disheveled is probably not the right word, but he's out of routine. Like he hasn't been in this situation before, and we're leaving practice in the morning, and he's racing to the bus because he doesn't know bus time. He's got waters everywhere. They're flying places. I think he's got his belt in his hand and routine's off.
Glasses on?
Glasses were on. So
good.
Yeah. Our Clark Kent still had the glasses. It was all good. Superman diving to make that play, block Faber, whatever you want to say. But he looked out of his element, not in like a bad way, but just in like in an inexperienced way. He doesn't know certain things about the routine of the NHL game, of the playoffs, and would that show up while he was on the ice in between the whistles? And I don't think it did at all. It's pretty amazing. Now, I think there were times where Evason tried to protect him, at least getting him into this game early. And we touched on this in the preview podcast. It's a lot harder to protect a D-man, an inexperienced D-man in the NHL, specifically on the road and in the playoffs. Much harder than it is a forward. You can put a forward on the fourth line. You can give them ozone starts. You can say just don't get scored on, and the job's a little bit easier. On defense, any icing, any of these situations, you saw Pete DeBoer too. He threw the top line out there. So he had some tough matchups, and Dean did. He shaved some minutes down. Faber was 17, 18 minutes. It was double OT. It wasn't a terribly taxing night for him, but he's able to sit there, watch some of this stuff, stay in the game with enough regularity in his shifts to be good. Well, let's be honest. He's going to be getting more ice as this series goes on. He's going to have to. Did you see the workload and the play that Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, Matt Dumba, that they had to have? it was taxing on them. Jared Spurgeon leaving that game, tape on his face, bleeding all over, blocking shots left and right, battling, going into the wall face first. It's going to be hard for him to do that for 7 straight games if this goes the distance. So Faber's going to get more minutes. And I think the Wild are pretty happy with how he acclimated and how he likely grew from the drop of the puck yesterday to the end of it too. Being on the ice for the game winner, the celebration, you see it from him. He was excited. All those little accomplishments, well, I think end up being huge for him in adjusting to playoff hockey briefly. Let's get to Sam Steele. My goodness, right? Like the start of the year, Sam Steele burst on the scene. He was great, and then he turned into a Nate Prosser, where he's in and out of the lineup. But whenever he's in the lineup, he produces. But he just wasn't in a spot where he could just take a job and run with it. So he had to be that 13th forward, the consummate pro. And first playoff game last night, he delivers in a huge way. So, I mean, have you seen a performance like that from a guy in his first playoff game? Now, he's a veteran player, but first playoff game, how about that block shot? And then the offense stakes over, ends up burying that one.
Yeah, well, and I had a chance to chat with him after, and he's 25, which is young but old for NHL players, for a first-round pick too. And first ever playoff game, he talked about waiting for this opportunity for so long, and then both sides of the puck, I thought he was excellent. And again, when you play in these kinds of games, and we talk about it with this Minnesota team, but the depth is so critical, and so guys are going to have to play, and they are going to, if things go well, they're making contributions. And after his breakaway goal, and what a pass from Gus Nyquist, who I thought, listen, there's a guy that at one point, for a lot of the season might have figured he was done, right? Had the injury. Who's going to trade for him? Okay, maybe you're thinking about next season, but I thought he was really, really good last night. And that pass to Steele, he breaks in, he beats the back pressure, finds a way to get the puck over Ottinger, which is no small feat given how good he is. And I thought to tie the game after giving up those 2 lightning quick power play goals, like, my God, with a total of 9 seconds on the power play to get those 2 goals. And to me, that's the game is sort of teetering there. And for Sam Steele to make his presence known, scored a critical goal. He also gets an assist. The puck bounces off his skate and goes to Ryan Hartman in double overtime for the game winner. So he gets he's got a goal and an assist. Some nice defensive plays in his first postseason game. And Ryan, I think to your point about Faber, the more that Dean Evason can ask of Sam Steele now, when you have that behind you and you have that in your pocket, okay, what else do you want me to do? So I think that's a good sign moving forward to be able to ask more of those younger players, because you're right, especially with the injuries, that everyone is going to have to be pulling on the rope, and I think we saw that last night.
Yeah, one person that was massively pulling on the rope for both teams was the goaltender. Let's talk a bit about the goaltender, but before we do, let's slide in our final break and another word from our sponsors.
The Wild on 7th pod is sponsored by Gem Sleep. Even Ryan Carter's mother is solving her sleep apnea. We got these late starts for the playoff games. We can't have Dana Carter walking around like a walking zombie, low energy, hurting her relationships, bad for her health. No, she took the initiative. Gem Sleep took care of her, almost like an Uber for sleep apnea. Gem Sleep is where sleep apnea goes to get put to bed. And be like Ryan Carter's mother and reach out to mygemsleep.com/wild. Don't be a walking zombie. Take care of yourself this playoff season, just like Mrs. Carter.
All right, everybody. Well, I think with the 80-degree days that just rolled through, we can officially say spring is here, which means it's roofing season. And if you're like me, lived in one of the areas that had the storms roll through with plenty of damage, it can take 18, 24 months for some of that damage to rear its ugly head. Good thing for you, our friends at Wild Construction have a great tool on their website They've got a 3-year hail history map. They've got inspection write-ups and other things that you can check out. Super easy to use. Just go to their website, input your address, and it'll give you info on good, better, best price options for your roof and the damage that you might have. These guys want to help you out. They're a Minnesota-based company, good quality guys, and hey, man, Wild Construction, they make it happen. Check them out, wildconstructionmn.com.
Well, the Wild are in the second season, the best one. And you know what? It's also slaw season. Do not sleep on the slaw. Get yourself some Jimmy's coleslaw. They have original, pineapple, and fat-free. So you got that paper plate rocking out by the grill. You got that warm burger, a little bit of crunch, and then you add some cool coleslaw texture. It's the best of all worlds happening at your BBQ. Check it out. They're a Minnesota company down from Stewartville, Minnesota, family owned. Check out Jimmy's salad dressings and dips. Don't sleep on the slaw. Don't you be messing with my dressing.
So Kinger, what do you like? All aboard the Gus bus, so many question marks going in. How did you feel? I mean, Dean Evason wouldn't talk about it. He wasn't going to tip his or show us his hand and tell us who's playing net, but I think it was the worst kept secret of all time. It was going to be Gustafsson playing in net. Sitting at home, getting ready for this one, where was the confidence level at that the Gus bus would keep rolling?
It was great. One of the things, I don't know if a lot of people saw this, he was interviewed after the game, and I was finishing my beer with my son, and it was one of the funniest interviews I've ever seen, because I think he was just absolutely exhausted. And so every question they would ask him, it was like it was beyond English as a second language. It was just like this. It was like verbal judo. And it was so good that when they cut back to studio, I think Wes Walls even almost started laughing, just because it was, when he was done with the interview, it was almost like you wanted to say, Gus, why don't you go get some rest? Because I really think, I don't know what it's like as a goalie to play in that game, but it felt like a fatiguing night for the goaltenders too. Obviously, you're seeing a lot of rubber, but like, you don't think about that, right? You think about the players, and I just think he absolutely spilled the beans and was just gassed, because this interview was like he wasn't even there, man. It's amazing.
He was like delirious.
Yeah.
Like he
Did
was
you
out
see
of
it?
He was punch drunk. I was
so funny. So funny.
was,
I'm like, this is the best. I'm like, this is so funny. Yeah.
dude, but this guy's personality, I think that like Wild fans are going to learn to love this guy, and he's maybe, I don't know if this is the right phrase, but blissfully ignorant of the pressure of the situation, of all of those things. And he comes out getting ready for the interview, and he's like, what do you think about those 2 goals I gave up? They were terrible. Thank goodness, we hit the reset button. And talking about energy levels, he's like, he was telling us he doesn't eat. So he had his final meal at 1:30 in the afternoon, late start. And he doesn't like to eat during games, or he doesn't know how his body will respond. So he's drinking Gatorade, but he says he's starving out there, and parts of the body starting to cramp up, and he's having to battle through it. And he's like,
he had low blood sugar in that interview, for sure.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to go down. I'm like, it was amazing.
Totally did. And he owned the fact that he didn't love the 2 goals he gave up, and he watched them during the intermission, but he hit the reset button, total pro move, and he conducts this interview with Kevin Gorg after. And then as soon as Gorg throws it back to the studio, he looks at the camera guy and everybody else in support of Kevin Gorg and says, hey, you guys know who you're talking to here? This is a Minnesota State high school champion, Kevin Gorg. And then he walks out. I mean, he just wins a massive game of double OT. And he's making jokes to the camera people about Kevin Gorg being of similar fame. And no, I was impressive. The way that he played, I'll be honest, I had my doubts. A guy playing such a critical position in a playoff game, first one on the road. He passed that test with flying colors. And I can't quite pinpoint why, but I think a little blissful ignorance has got a hand in it for sure. What do you see, Scott?
Yeah, it's funny. I had a chance to chat with Philip and Marc-Andre Fleury the other day for a piece that I'll write later today, just about the goaltending dynamic. And I know Bill Guerin feels that Marc-Andre Fleury's had such a positive impact on Gustafsson this year. And it's been a lot of, sort of I mean, sort of came out of nowhere, right? The expectations were fairly muted, I think, when we acquired him from Ottawa. And Philip talked about how he has learned to treat the game almost like it's a fun hobby with some of his best pals. And so that he can walk away from it. And he doesn't stress every day like he did in Ottawa, where if he wasn't literally at the top of his game every single night, they were likely going to lose. And even if it was really good, they were likely going to lose too, because that's where that team was at in its evolution. So, to your point, Ryan, I think he just seems to have a very Zen approach to his new career here in Minnesota. And I think that speaks to his play and his relationship with Marc-Andre Fleury. And it's a really, because it doesn't always happen that way with goalies, right? I mean, you like to think everyone is supportive of each other and all those things. It doesn't always happen that way. And what I think Marc-Andre Fleury and Philip Gustafsson have established is pretty dynamic. So I'm just curious, because Dean Evason, how many times has he said in the very brief time that I have been sort of hanging around, not talking about starting goalies, but also alluding to the fact we're going to use both goalies, or we're likely. Is it automatic you go back to Gustafsson Wednesday night in game 2? I mean, is there any hesitation about that? Like, is there any wrinkle to be thrown in by going to Fleury in game 2? Or what do you think?
I think for me, the only wrinkle would be fatigue. Can Gustafsson recover from that physically fast enough? And if the answer from Gustafsson is yes, I feel good, then I think you go right back with him. He was good. I mean, 50 plus saves. Why not roll with the kid? And the Wild played great in front of him. I think a lot of it comes down to that too. Just think about the way the Wild defended. They were able to execute a game plan. And Dallas was good offensively. They started to take over the final 60 minutes of that game. And but the Wild just didn't surrender. It was like a war of attrition. We know what we have to do, stick with it, commit, trust our goalie when we have to. They did all of those things, and they waited for their bounce. They got it. They capitalized, and they stole one and home ice with it. So I don't see any way that they go to Marc-Andre Fleury right now. In all honesty, I think there's a ton, and the staff, and they have a ton of faith in Gustafsson, more so than anybody on the outside does too. Like, we have all of our doubts because we can see the pressure and starting on the road and playoffs being different and no experience. I don't think the staff sees any of that stuff. They just see a guy that's playing good hockey right now.
Yeah.
Kieran, my man, what else you got? Any other observations? Like, that was an unbelievable hockey game.
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm going to do a little X's and O's with you guys because, we provide full value to the listener. So I think what was exciting for me, the Wild can play a lot of different styles of hockey games, but I think they really displayed what it looks like when they're at their best last night. So first period, okay, it's D to D. It is crispy in the D zone, D to D, maybe go back. In the offensive zone, they're taking a step, rifling it on the blue line. That puck possession, when it's just a rectangle with those D-to-D passes, it was awesome. I mean, we had the puck all the time. It was crispy. When we weren't doing that and you weren't seeing those D-to-D passes and we were kind of chasing, it gets pretty stressful. We give up a lot of shots. Gus got under a lot more pressure. But there were stretches in that game for 10, 5 minutes where it was like this amoeba. I mean, it was just awesome to watch. And then I had a question for you guys on the power play. So it was interesting, we were talking about Klingberg and walking the line, and Addison had been there in the past. It ends up being Spurgeon. It seemed like they were putting Kirill net front. He was usually really close to the goalie. First unit getting a minute 55 every time. What did you see on the power play specifically? It probably becomes more important as we go from here, but that's about as nerdy as I can be from a hockey sense.
Yeah, I'm not the power play expert, but no, it was. And I was a bit surprised because, of course, on the deflection, which is, I mean, talk about a high skill play, for Kaprizov to sort of turn and be able to get his stick on that puck. And And again, I think really, such an important moment in that game that was filled with important moments. But for the power play to establish a tone early on, I like the whole. I like the movement for the most part all night. I thought the chances were there. Didn't look to me like a unit or a group that was pressing and worrying about, geez, do we really suck, or we can't really screw this up, because if we don't get this right, it's going to be hard to win the series. So I thought there was sort of a looseness about it, like the natural flow to it. I don't know, Ryan, what do you, especially without Eriksson Ek and John Klingberg, both of whom factor into the power play when everyone's healthy. Again, I think undermanned group acquitted themselves quite well.
For me, again, in the preview, we touched on what losing Eriksson Ek on the power play does. And it's the guy that's so good net front and screening, tipping, and then it's puck retrievals. The Wild scored that power play goal because of a puck retrieval, because no, it wasn't Eriksson Ek. It was Kaprizov. He goes in. It's a loose puck. He gets it. Quick little play on the backhand. He doesn't dust that thing off. He gets it up to Zuccarello quick, and then he quick one touches it up to Jared Spurgeon, and then Kaprizov gets right back net front. So there's like this commitment, like an understanding. And the Wild scored that power play goal because of a good puck retrieval. That's what Eriksson Ek was so good at, and they relied on him so much for. And who's going to fill that void? Again, it's one of those things. It's like it's different but similar. Like Derek Jeter, when there's that throw home and he's just all of a sudden there to help corral it and throw it, and they get the out at home, the Yankees win that game. And it's like, Derek Jeter's our guy. It's so great. That's Kirill Kaprizov right there. Like, he understands that this is important for this power play. I've got to be there and quick support. And Johansson goes down. He picks that puck up. He makes the play. And then he's not done. He goes net front. But I thought Jared Spurgeon did a great job, and he has just 4 power play points on the year, 1 power play goal. It was his job. He's lost his, maybe not the right word, but surrendered it at times to Kalen Addison and then John Klingberg. And you could be one of those players that says, man, this coach doesn't have faith in me, and you could pout and lose your confidence. But he found a way to go out there, control the power play. Like he was actually running it. It's not like he was deferring, throwing it off to the flanks. He was getting to good ice, making sure he's ready to shoot, brought the puck to the net. He looked like a guy that's been running a power play all year long. I thought I still think that, now, I'm not saying the Wild power play got lucky, and they're still figuring some stuff out for sure. Like Johansson net front, Kaprizov net front. What's that going to look like? 97's actually best on the flank. Like, we'd love him in a scoring spot if we can get him there. So they're still figuring some stuff out, but they got their power play goal last night. It was on a big puck retrieval and a heart play from Kirill Kaprizov.
Absolutely. Hey, are you guys growing playoff beards?
Can't show.
Well, I can tell on you for sure. Are you allowed to, Carts?
I don't know if I am allowed to. So even when I played, I hate to have to admit this, I can't really grow a beard, so I would grow a playoff mustache.
Okay,
and again,
that's fine.
It's strength.
That's fine.
Its strength was in its weakness. It was so bad, it was good. But we'll see. No promises.
For the listeners, start tweeting at us, tag us. I want a daily check-in, playoff beard day 2, playoff. We got to get to the itchy phase late into round 1. We got to get to the Zach Brown phase. If we can win a couple rounds, let's get greasy here. It's put your finger on the side of your nose and get that head on your beard to go down, right? Let's get greasy. I think I had one more thing. Oh, hey, one of the things when I watch the playoffs, there's like playoff guys and regular season guys. And usually you only get a guy or two each game that's a playoff guy that just sort of announces themselves as a playoff guy. That game being so long last night, I mean, you look at this list, right? Kirill, Warrior, great tip. Hartman, couldn't have happened to a better guy in overtime. Foligno, hunting men. Spurgey put more miles on his face last night. He needs to go to the Jiffy Lube. He's got 3,000 miles on his face in one game. Brock Faber, block Faber. You just mix that in. Carts, genius. Gus bus. Punch drunk Gus. He's got no blood sugar. He still pulls it off. Revo checking Jamie Benn into the bench and being like, hey, we got a different chess piece here. Be careful. Dumba. I mean, it's like unbelievable how many guys just showed up as playoff guys. God bless you.
Yeah, well, and I think literally you
Nyquist.
can go. Yeah, well, I was going to say, for me, watching Gus Nyquist, because again, there's such a calmness to his game and making plays. I thought Matt Boldy, even though he didn't get on the score sheet, he didn't, right? I'm just checking. I thought he made, there were points in the game where, and Ryan, I was thinking about your comments from our earlier podcast about, okay, how often does he go to his knees? And I thought, there were a couple of times, there were a few times that he was down and back up, but I thought there were moments where he hunted down pucks and he made plays and he kept plays alive and he made plays through traffic. I thought he was he was on the verge of doing something to end the game or whatever, but I thought he was really good. And there's a guy that, especially without Eric Sinek, and we saw this with Kaprizov, but with his injury, I think he's a guy that has the wherewithal to step back into the breach. And I thought he was really good for a guy who didn't necessarily end up on the score sheet last night. And I think that's, again, a long list of players who answered the bell. I was really impressed with Matt Boldy.
Yeah, I agree. He had some good stick plays, 2 takeaways in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
He was driving the middle lane. He had a couple of good deflections. Johansson almost got a rebound goal off of one of his drives and plays. Boldy, he didn't get it going 5-on-5 in the zone, getting the cycle, winding it up, but he did have an impact on the game. And again, I think he's going to continue to get better and better. The last thing I want to touch on before we close this out is I think, Dean Avison, I give him, and he deserves so much credit for how he knows this club and how they're going to respond. They went into the playoffs last year chasing home ice, wanting to play good hockey, and he learned from that moment, I think, that didn't matter. Like going in playing great, it didn't matter. And I think he was comfortable starting this series on the road, and he chose to rest guys. And I feel like that was a massive risk. Like the Wild didn't know what was going to go on with their power play. They didn't have their 5-on-5 lines clicking on all cylinders going into the playoffs. I feel like there was a ton of risk just saying, hopefully this rest pays off. We don't know. The Wild could have gone out and laid an absolute egg last night, and then everybody would be all over Avison saying, you should have played these guys in Nashville. You should have had them in Chicago. You should have let them dial their game in against the opposition when it isn't so strong and really be firing on all cylinders. Man, these guys turned it on at the right moment. He knows this club. He got them ready. They were rested. They're ready to go to battle. They wanted to go to battle for him, for each other. They did in game 1. When grit first is the mantra, I think that was on display last night. And I think part of it was because they had the energy to do it. So Dean Avison, kudos to him. He really knows this club and how to get them going for big hockey games. But from the studio, Kinger, man, appreciate you. Scott, thanks for joining us. This has been awesome. And for the fans, if the audio isn't top notch, we're coming from you at all different angles. We're at the secondary hotel. Scott and I didn't make the cut. So we're at, I don't know what you'd like to call it, maybe the Pigeon Hotel across the way. We've got a long walk to be able to take a bus.
Carts, is the tagline for your hotel also grit first?
Grit first, it's what's in the water when you brush your teeth.
It kind of looks like it. You might have a flipping waffle maker down in the lobby. Be careful, man.
Yeah.
Well, hey, buddy, we're here.
Till it's here.
Peace.